Hi, this is Anna Bevan Gravely with NCFREE, and I am joined by Judge Reuben Young, who's running for election for Court of Appeals. Judge Young, thanks so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to share with our members before we get started?
Thank you so very much for the opportunity as well. And I will tell you just by way of background that I currently serve on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, having been appointed by the governor last April, took the seat in May and been serving on the court since then. I don't want to bore you too much with my background, but I'm happy to go into that if you are so inclined to hear it.
Yeah, go ahead. Share a little bit about it.
Well, I will tell you that I am a North Carolinian by choice. I am what is known as a PK. So I am a preacher's kid. My father was a Methodist minister, and as is the case in that profession, ministers move around a little bit. And so I was born in Tennessee, and at the age of 13, my parents and I moved to North Carolina. So I went to junior high school and high school in Raleigh. My dad was an AME Zion minister. After I graduated from high school, I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., came back, went to North Carolina Central School of Law, which is where I met my wife. And after we graduated, we moved to Austin, Texas, and I lived out there for 10 years, served as a prosecutor, a defense attorney, a civil insurance defense litigation attorney, worked in the Attorney General's office, and we also both of our boys were born in Austin. We returned to North Carolina in 1995. I serve as both an assistant and an associate attorney general, representing primarily the Highway Patrol in both state and federal court. Shortly after that, I served as deputy legal counsel and legal counsel, chief legal counsel for the Governor Easley, for both of his terms. At the end of that time, I served as a cabinet member under Governor Perdue's administration and as a secretary of the Department of Crime Control and Public Safety, and then the first secretary of the Consolidated Department of Public Safety. At the end of her term, I was appointed a special Superior Court judge, served in that capacity for 5 years, returned to the Department of Public Safety as chief interim deputy secretary of adult corrections and juvenile justice, and then after that period of time was appointed to the court.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So I'm just going to dive into the questions. Which one of the current or recent U.S. Supreme Court justices best reflects your judicial philosophy?
Well, I will tell you that of the justices, and I don't know if you would be necessarily consider them to be current, well, certainly they're not current, and how recent it would be, but I would have to say Thurgood Marshall, because I think his kind of struggle, if you will, to be recognized and to be appreciated in the profession took certainly some patience and some endurance. But in spite of all of that, he did not waver with regard to his belief in the civil rights and the individual rights, I believe, of all people, and the necessary fairness of the judicial system and the justice system. And I think of all the justices, I think I probably align, I think maybe more philosophically with Justice Marshall than any other.
So would you mind going into a little more detail about what your judicial philosophy is?
I think folks tend to label themselves with regard to what their philosophy is from a judicial standpoint. If I had to characterize myself in that way, I would do that by saying that I work very hard and intentionally every day to be fair. I don't walk into this position, quite frankly, or with any other position, with any preconceived notions about the people that are appearing before me. I think it is critically important that in these positions, people understand that when they come to court, that they will have an opportunity to be heard, that they will have an opportunity to have their arguments made, and that they will get the same consideration that anyone else in the courtroom will get, with the understanding that it is the responsibility of the judges to make sure, not just me, but judges at every level, that the law is applied, it is applied fairly, and it is applied accurately. And so that is, I think, quite frankly, every judge's mission. It's not about whether people think you're conservative or whether they think you're liberal or whether they think you're a moderate. Some people may disagree. My opinion is that the obligation of a judge and anyone working in the justice system is to be fair. And I think we have to work at that every day with every case.
Yeah. What would you say the key principles of free enterprise are?
I would say the protection of private property rights, the protection of individual rights, and making sure that there are equal individual rights. I think there needs to be competition in the marketplace, but I think it needs to be fair competition. I think it needs to be open, and I think it needs to be diverse. I think it needs to be, the participants need to be reflective of the demographics of the country, both as it applies to race and as it applies to gender. Because I think that people who come from different backgrounds, who participate in a free economic system, bring different opinions, different experiences that will do nothing but make the system stronger. And in order for that to happen, the opportunities have to be there for people to participate. And we cannot assume that one category or one group of people are more adept at participating in the system than any other.
Yeah. So what kind of jobs, interests, and volunteer activities did you take part in college and then in law school?
Well, interestingly enough, I made the intentional decision to go to an HBCU when I graduated from a predominantly white high school, because it was important for me to gain a better understanding of who I am or who I was at the time and where my place was in society. And in order for me to do that, I thought that it was important for me to become a student of American history. And so I was an American history major in college and a political science major as well. And so not only was I intrigued and interested in the story of this nation, but also the stories of those who had not been written in the history, if you will, those who had been marginalized, who had been forgotten, but whose history, I believe, was very much a part of the fabric of this nation as any other. And so I was a member of groups and organizations that focused on the importance of the history of folks other than just the majority folk. The importance of the contributions that women had made and continue to make in our society,
but don't get noted for the contributions in the way that they should, because it is those lessons, I think, that inspire future generations, that help people coming forward to understand that there were people who came before them that paved a way, hopefully, that would make it easier for them to make their mark and to find their destiny. In law school, of course, I was obviously concerned about the disparities that existed in the justice system, particularly with regard to the overrepresentation of minorities in the criminal justice system. And what may have been intrinsic in the system that may have lent itself to more African Americans being incarcerated. But as I learned, not only was it an issue of race, but it was an issue of other issues and concerns that we have in our society with regard to social status, economic positions, levels of education, and so many other issues that impact what happens in the criminal justice system. And you can't just look at it in a vacuum and say that there is disproportionate representation in the criminal justice system. You have to look beyond that and ask the questions with regard to why. Is it a lack of education? Is it a lack of economic opportunity? Is it substance abuse? Is it mental health challenges? Those are all issues I think that we need to look at to understand more about not only just the criminal justice system, but the justice system overall.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. What has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career and then in your personal life? If you can narrow it down, you've got a very, very diverse background with, I'm sure, a lot of accomplishments.
Well, and I've been very fortunate in that regard. And I will tell you from a legal standpoint, I think probably the greatest personal accomplishment was being part of the recovery and the return of North Carolina's Bill of Rights. And in 2010, 2011, and I won't bore you with the entire story, but I will tell you that as legal counsel to the governor, we were contacted by another state that indicated that they believed that they were in possession of North Carolina's Bill of Rights, which had been gone from this state for decades, if you will, in spite of efforts to try to recover it. Ultimately, to fast forward, that document was recovered. We got that document back. And while it is priceless, it is valued at over $30 million and is now housed over at the Department of Cultural Resources. But the interesting twist about that story is at the time that it happened and it occurred, my wife was working as a deputy secretary over at the Department of Cultural Resources. And so initially when we were contacted, I, of course, thought it was a hoax because there had been those contacts over the years where people wanted to sell North Carolina's Bill of Rights back to North Carolina. So I went home, told my wife about the interesting call I had that day, and she filled me in on the history of our struggle to get the Bill of Rights back. And so that was very, very helpful. And ultimately what happened, she forced me to make some notes with regard to my journey, and that became the subject of a public records request. And my notes were included in a book that was written by David Howard by the name of Lost Rights. And that book is about the recovery of North Carolina's Bill of Rights. And so I think from a professional standpoint, that was probably one of my greatest accomplishments, but I cherish it most because not just because my wife and I are mentioned in the book, but because she was really, I think, the impetus for me to be as active in the recovery of that document as I was. And of course, the irony of it is that when that document was drafted, it didn't contemplate the rights for people that look like me. But it does now because we demand it. And that's what people have to do. And it didn't contemplate the rights of women as well. But now it does, because we demand that be the case and that be the interpretation. Now, so much for that professional legal accomplishment. My personal accomplishment, I think, that I'm most proud of are my sons. And I have two boys. One is an attorney in Ohio, and works in a county adjacent to Columbus, Ohio, where he is doing some juvenile prosecution. And so he has just started his career and is little less than a year of being a lawyer. So he's still trying to figure out what it means. My oldest son will be defending his dissertation for his PhD in the field of biochemistry in less than a month. And so I am very proud of them. I attribute much of their accomplishments to their mother. The best I probably did for them was read them stories and give them rides to school back and forth. But a good accomplishment nonetheless.
Absolutely.
For me, I think, but I'm very proud of them and what they've done. And the most I can say about them is that they are, and in spite of their age, they're good boys. They're good citizens, and they have a caring and understanding nature, I think, about them for other people.
Yeah. I love a parent's gush, if you will. It's unlike anything else. It's a great joy to hear.
It is.
And congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is your vision for the future of our judicial system? What changes would you advocate for?
Well, with the clear understanding that you cannot advocate from the bench, I do think it's important that we do what we can to level the playing field for all litigants and for all parties. Just because someone can come into a court and afford lawyers who have outstanding credentials and experiences should not differentiate their case from someone who is not able to do that. So many of the cases that I presided over as a Superior Court judge were criminal cases. I think it's extremely important that judges have the discretion or more discretion with regard to sentencing. I don't think we can lump everybody into the same bucket with regard to the commission of crimes. Now, there are people, obviously, who go out and they do bad things, and the law needs to apply to them, and the sentencing needs to apply to them commensurate with the crime that have been committed. I believe as well that most folks make bad decisions. And because they make bad decisions does not mean that their lives ought to be characterized by that one mistake. Because the fact of the matter is, we've all made them, and we've all made bad decisions. And if all of us were held responsible for the rest of our lives for the bad decisions that we have made, and I'll be the first to admit, I've done stupid things in my life. But somebody saw past that, and somebody saw more than that, which gave me an opportunity to get past it. And I think that we've got to be sensitive to the fact that not every mistake that someone makes is something that they need to be tagged with for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well that we need to recognize the struggles that are happening in society that bring so many people to court. The issues of addiction, the issues of mental health, the issues of poverty. Those issues should not be criminalized. We need, as a society, to figure out how to best address the needs that people have and not just send them to jail. Unfortunately, our system is a place where we send folks that we don't want to deal with. And that's wrong. If people have challenges and struggles in their lives, we need to do what we can to help them to get over that and to help them realize their potential and not just put them in jail. Because what happens is that we send them to a system that's not equipped to handle them, not equipped to deal with whatever their specific issues are. And what we wind up doing is making their conditions worse. And so there is much work to be done in that regard. The other part of the system that I think that we need to work on and we need to be mindful of is we have to do what we can to not only protect victims, but to also make sure that we provide them the resources to recover. The way the system works now is that if you go to criminal court, a person gets prosecuted, a person gets found guilty, there is support for the victim up to that point. But what happens after that? Their lives have been changed. They have been adversely impacted. Their families' lives have been changed. What are we doing to help them recover? We can't focus so much on incarcerating the defendant and then spending time and resources in doing the things to address the needs that defendants have and forget about the victims. And I think there is, that is a huge gap in our system. Once the case is over with, disposition has occurred, we let people go back to what we think are their normal lives. Well, that's not the case for a victim.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this this conversation and getting to learn more about you and your viewpoints. Where can our members go to learn more about you?
The best place to go, other than Google, is to keepjudgeyoung.com. And what you will find on that website is more information about me, a short biography. There's videos of my investiture, endorsements and statements that people have made about me over the course of my career, summing up who I am and what my life's work has been, if you will, in their words.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a great rest of the day and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you so very much. And thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.